Week 5 of the Diddy trial, and another former girlfriend comes forward to testify for the prosecution.
So Jane testified that she and Diddy had a love contract when it came to her monthly expenses. She told him she wanted 15 grand a month, and he said 10 grand.
The Cassie beating video, front and center again, as we learn Diddy paid $100,000 to keep it under wraps. Clearly, that didn't work. But what does this have anything to do with racketeering? The Diddy sex tapes, will they move the needle or just bolster the defense's point that Diddy was kinky, not criminal? Former Diddy employee Brianna Bongalon takes the stand and describes a harrowing incident where Diddy dangled her from a 17th floor balcony, yelling, "Do you know what the fuck you did?" She says she had no idea. And sparks are flying outside the courtroom. Bill Maher makes big waves for saying Cassie could have just walked away. Bill will join our panel. This is United States versus Sean Combs inside the Diddy trial. So the trial this week has taken some really interesting turns. The prosecutors continue to nail Diddy as being a really bad guy and a criminal in some respects. The question, are they proving that he's a criminal based on the charges that they filed against him? You will be interested in that discussion. First, though, Bill Maher has made some big waves with his latest editorial.
If you're being abused, you got to leave right away. Now, I completely understand why in the past women often did not do that. If Diddy walks free, it will be because his lawyers can point to an endless stream of text from Cassie expressing what's often called enthusiastic consent to their sex life. If we're going to have an honest conversation about abuse, we also have to have an honest conversation about what people are willing to do for stardom. If you want a #1 record on the chart so bad you'll take a #1 in the face, some of that is on you.
He is joining us, the host of Real Time, brilliant comedian, the host of Club Random. With him, we have Ashley Banfield, who is the host of Banfield on News Nation, also the host of Drop Dead Serious podcast. Joe Tacopina, a very celebrated criminal defense lawyer who recently won the ASAP Rocky case. And Ebony K. Williams, the host of Equal Justice and Holding Court. Okay, Bill. I was fascinated by your editorial, essentially saying that women now have agency. Women have the ability to leave an abusive relationship. And Cassie essentially made a deal with the devil that if you want a #1 hit, you have to do certain things to get it. It's your call whether you want it or not. In her case, freak-offs, which you say the text show she was enthusiastic about. Is that a fair characterization of what you're saying?
Not completely. I wasn't saying that those texts that she wrote were sincere. I don't think they were. I don't think she was enjoying the freak-offs. But that just goes to the point that sometimes people do things that they really don't want to do for some greater good. I notice the people who came after me, you know, they always do it in such bad faith. You know, they never include, first of all, they're probably too lazy to watch the whole thing. So they just see the part that the people who are their partisans of whatever issue put out there. So they think that's the whole thing. But I went to great lengths to talk about how I completely understand how women would, as counterintuitive as it is, or as it seems, write a complimentary text, for example, or email to an abuser after they were abused, because especially before the Me Too movement, not that things have changed completely, but they've changed a lot, which is a big point I was making. You know, when you had people like Cosby and Harvey Weinstein and looked like nobody ever had to pay the piper for what they were doing, well, you know, that's why you might write that complimentary text after you were abused, because at least you're going to get something out of it. You have this connection with this person. But let's live in the world, you know, the year we're living in is something I say a lot. And, you know, those guys are in jail now. A lot of people went to jail. A lot of other people can't even show their faces. You know, I'm not going to name names because they'd sue me properly, but, you know, a lot of people can't go out to dinner because they're just persona non grata, as it should be for abusive men. But I was just saying that there has to be a little more agency, yes. I think the heart of what I was saying was in the future, because, you know, things are somewhat different now, quite a bit different. Don't tell your friends about it when it happens. Tell the police right away. That's the person who should be reading your contemporaneous notes, the police report. Because if you wait 10 years, it gets kind of murky. And again, I went to great lengths to say, I understand why this has happened in the past, but I do think we should reevaluate that. And if you are being abused, especially, and again, if you're being actually captured by somebody, that's different. If it's about he blocked the door, okay, we're talking about a different thing, physical restraint. But if it's just mental, which a lot of this was, you know, I quoted the singer that Shia LaBeouf was with, FKA Twigs, I think is her name, and I read her quote, which said, I could have left any time I wanted to. I had a townhouse in London that I could have gone to. And I said, then why am I reading about this? If you could have done that, why didn't you do it? So that's really what I was saying. It's certainly not excusing Diddy. I went to great lengths to say how much I thought he should be in jail. I don't know what kind of criminal he is, Harvey. I know that's your big theme is, are they going to get him on what they're charging him with? But even if they don't get him on that, they ought to get him on something.
Well, but you did say that if you want a #1 record, you make a deal with the devil sometimes. And it sounded like you were saying that Cassie knew freak-offs were a price she'd have to pay in order to advance her career. I mean, that's the way I took what you said.
Well, I said there are women very often stay for two reasons that are cited. One, you know, I love him or I loved him. And then I went into how, well, come on, we've learned by now that abuse is not love and abusers don't change. If it happened once, it's going to happen again. And the other reason that sometimes people stay is, yes, it is kind of a deal with the devil. The allure of being a star makes people do a lot of weird shit.
Can I throw in a third reason? How about the consequences of leaving and the consequences of reporting are sometimes so much worse than whatever it is you're dealing with currently. I'm covering a case of a woman in Washington State right now who was supposed to be a guest on my show 2 nights ago, but she had to cancel at 8 o'clock at night because the police were there to tell her 3 daughters, 9, 8, and 5, had just been suffocated by the husband she left. So there are other reasons, Bill. And by the way, I watched everything you said. I watch you every single Friday. I never disagree with you. You're like a hero to me, and you have been for 25 years. This time I really did take issue because I'd been in that testimony moment to moment to the point of being revulsed and saddened by it. And I have seen it repeated over and over that so many of these people, men and women, were terrified of him and terrified of his tentacles.
Okay, I mean, there are no great choices sometimes. I agree. But you're saying the preferable choice is just to stay there? To stay
Sometimes
in that
if it means
relationship?
you stay alive. Yeah, I think that the case of the Washington woman is a perfect one, and it's so proximate. It just happened. Sometimes you stay alive by keeping the status quo.
I guess it's a case-by-case basis. You know, I mean, yes, if your life is imminently in danger, I guess that's a different situation. I don't think that's what we're talking about here, and that's not what I was talking about, and that's not what we were just talking about with show business.
But I agree. It's the show business part is the second part.
I'd like to just add a fact into Bill's framing, if you will. Good to meet you, Bill. And I appreciate you pointing out that what Diddy's done is quite horrible and he should suffer some consequence. But in the framing of sometimes people make a deal with the devil for fame, celebrity, and wealth, which sounds very kind of Robert Johnson, selling his soul to the devil to have a phenomenal blues career. And that works scenario. But let's look at the facts here with Cassie Ventura. We know she was 19 years old, which we all know isn't even a completed frontal lobe cognitively, right? Literally not fully able to make conscious decisions in a full way. We know that Diddy, per Cassie's testimony, didn't show any of that violent tendencies or malicious, violent aspects of himself until well into a year or two into her signed deal and into their relationship. So I wouldn't really think that we could frame it, Bill, as she knew going into it, hey, I'm signing away everything that's decent and good about my life in pure exchange for, you know, celebrity and wealth.
I didn't say going into it. I said going out of it. And when she was, and she was not 19 when she was finally going out of it. Her frontal lobe
we could argue that 19 is when that premise kind of started to cement about who he was and how much control and onus he had over her life.
Okay, but you know, this is the difference between generations. Maybe why Harvey's always arguing with the people he works with there. Like the feminism of our generation was more about strength, and this seems to be more about indulging weakness.
I would totally disagree. I'm not sure what generation you think I am, Bill, but I'm a grandma millennial. I'm 42 years old almost. And I was taught that feminism was about choice, and informed choice is a big part of that. And I'm arguing, I guess, with you the concept of Cassie's informed and empowered decision-making. Because I would say she had very limited empowerment here.
Well, I disagree with that. She's a grown woman. I mean, if we're talking about something physical, I understand men are bigger and stronger than women. That's why we do so well in women's swimming. But when it comes to, if something is mental, shouldn't women just be as strong as us in that area? And I think they are.
A lot of this was physical, Bill, and you know that. You saw the tape. So we know that there was physical force at play here. Now, to Harvey's point, whether or not that meets the standard of the racketeering is a different thing, but we all saw the domestic violence.
And
yes, we
Joe, Joe, we put a poll up on the website on Saturday. We put Bill's editorial up on our site. 45% of the people agreed with him. That's a huge number. I'm wondering if what Bill says is kind of resonating with the jury.
It is, because if you don't think there are some women jurors from New York City, really as tough as they get, in my opinion, where I'm from, by the way, that are going to see it the way Bill sees it, which is like, you had a choice. Once this happened once, twice, you could have left. And I'm sorry, everything Bill's saying is right, because understand this. I'll go back to this. I keep repeating this. But all these issues with Cassie Ventura, for example, let's start with her, where she didn't leave, as Bill just said. She kept coming back for more because it was enhancing her career, or she believed it would. She never went to the police. She went to a money lawyer 10 years later. She tried to get money. She tried to write a book. She got $20 million. According to her text messages contemporaneous with these horrific incidents that she testified to at trial, we're making it look like this was a great relationship, contemporaneous. Now, you could say, oh, Stockholm Syndrome, all these different excuses. But I will say one thing to you. Had none of this existed, had Cassie tried to leave, had the text messages been saying, you're a brutalizer, you raped me, you did all these things to me, as opposed to I love you, I want to come back to you, I miss you, whatever, all these points would have been, a bastion of proof for the prosecution. And everyone on this panel would have been saying, oh my God, he's so guilty because she did all these things contemporaneous. She went to the police. Her text messages are consistent. She tried to leave, but he restrained her physically. None of that happened. And so it's fair game to say she's not, unless you think she's a complete moron or was absolutely brainwashed. Completely brainwashed, where she couldn't even make her own choice.
Can I ask a question, Joe?
By the way, she's the one who initiated some of these freak-offs. She's the one who, by the way, she also gave it back to him a few times. Apparently, there were incidents of domestic violence from her to him. Not saying that excuse anything he did. He is a proven criminal. He's a proven bad guy. He's a proven domestic batterer. No question. It's not. Can I
ask you a question, Joe, in good faith? I want to ask you a question, my dear. Do you think in order for a victim, a pure victim, to be listened to, believed, and considered in this construct, do they need to be a perfect victim? Do they need to be perfect?
Of course not. There's no such thing as a perfect victim.
Well, no, I think what you laid out would have been a perfect victim.
But if you start adding up all the issues, just all of them, there's 3 or 4 with Cassie Ventura.
But even Bill Maher said, but Joe, even Bill Maher said he didn't believe that the text messages were sincere. He even was able to hold the space for the fact that that was likely the result.
That's just one thing. But Bill Maher came to a conclusion that she could have left. Don't you think? 45% of the pollsters came in.
I can't wait to see what the jury. You know what?
All you need is one juror. All you need is one juror who's going to say, "Oh,
yeah, I was going to say, you and I both know pollsters a verdict don't make. I look forward to the jury.
Bill, I know you have to leave. I have 2 questions for you. I'm fascinated to know what you think of the racketeering charge in particular against Diddy.
Well, I mean, I get all my information about this from you. So I know.
Okay, well,
I mean, this is. I know this is your big thing, and I share your concern because I mean, I do think they should throw this guy in jail and lock him up and throw away the key. But how does it constitute that he's charged with? If they don't get him on this, it's a real shame because then they overreached for what they were trying to get him on. And there is a real question about whether the things he did constituted an organized crime. It wasn't very organized,
no.
except for the amassing of the baby oil. It was not very organized. But I just also want to say, I separate the Diddy trial from this other issue we're talking about. You know, people are so one way or the other. They're really. It's just depressing how they can't see any nuance. It's not like I'm Team Diddy or Team Cassie.
Right.
I'm not Team Diddy at all. I'm just saying that I mean, I mentioned in the piece I did, Tina Turner got away. Now, she went through a lot of hell in an era where there was no kind of support. J-Lo was with Diddy. First sign of trouble, she bounced. But it's not like it can't be done. I'm sure in some situations, like I said a few times here already, if you're actually being captured, if you're being physically restrained, or you think you're going to die, well, first of all, if I thought someone was going to kill me, I would do everything I could to find a way out of that situation. And you know, I just think oddly in this discussion really looked to me like I believe in women more than you do.
Well, Bill, can I just offer you this? What if I told you, and I do know this to be a fact as somebody who served on a board for domestic violence and child abuse victims for 6 years here in New York City, Safe Horizon. What if I told you, Bill, that the most dangerous time for a woman or her children or a man who's being violently abused is when they try to leave? It's actually when they try to leave that they are most likely to be killed.
As opposed to what? Staying in an intolerable situation the rest of your life?
That's all.
I understand.
It just happens.
But go to the police. Go to the police.
We're talking practically those are your 2 choices. I get it. That's a tough choice to make. Life is full of tough choices. But what you're saying to me is because the most dangerous time is when a woman is about to leave. Should you just stay in that horrible situation?
I'm not saying that at all.
That's what you choose.
Well, then what are the other choices?
We offer services.
You know, if I had a dime, if I had a dime for the number of times I've covered a case of a woman who's gone to the police and actually gotten a restraining order and ended up dead, I would not be on this panel right now.
There you go.
Oh, I don't think those dimes would add up more than $5.
No, it's true, Joe.
Come on.
You know how many judges have lost their seats? You've seen them. I've seen them. We've all that practiced have seen it. Judges that have that blood on their hands.
Yes, there are outliers.
Yes.
But that's what
no, those are not outliers.
These are not outliers, Joe Tacopina.
Today's day and age, you go to the police and say you were domestically assaulted by your boyfriend or by a celebrity, game, set, and match for that individual.
No,
it's
Joe.
over.
I say this as a defense lawyer.
I was a 6 crimes prosecutor. I prosecuted these cases.
Bill, before you go, I have one question. I have one question before you go. If he gets convicted, will Trump pardon him?
Well, I would never put anything past Trump to do something like that.
No way.
Who could predict what Donald Trump will do? I mean, is it possible? Yeah. I mean, you know, Trump's a guy who wakes up every day and thinks he has another really cool idea. Hey, let's reopen Alcatraz. Hey, let's get Greenland. Hey, let's move Alcatraz to Greenland. Everybody would love that. So if he wakes up tomorrow and says, hey, I'm going to pardon Diddy, I will not be surprised. All right.
Okay, Bill. Hey, cannot thank you enough for doing this, Bill. Thank you.
Buongiorno.
Really appreciate it. Buongiorno.
Hi, Bill.
Okay, we're going to bring in Arman Wiggins, who is the host of his show on YouTube. Arman, welcome.
Hey guys, thank you guys for having me back.
So, Arman, you were in court all week. There was a security guard who testified about Diddy paying off the security people at the Intercontinental Hotel where he beat Cassie, and it paid him $100,000 to get the drive. What exactly does that have to do with racketeering?
The way that I feel like it's the pile on. I feel like it's showing like he's moving money around to silence people. It's hush money. And so I think that's the part. Like you're paying people off to hide your potential crimes.
Guys, help me out here. I thought racketeering is about organized crime. This is about disorganized crime. This is Diddy going after a boyfriend of Cassie's, Diddy trying to get a tape to erase the horrible thing that he did, you know, Diddy breaking in to see about a Christmas present or threatening somebody in his office. But it doesn't feel like a criminal organization. It feels like criminal disorganization.
No, because he's using his staff according to the testimony. Hold it.
An enterprise that's established to commit crimes. This is not a racketeering enterprise. This is a lunatic.
Quorum handed the phone. Christina Quorum, according to testimony, called up Eddie Garcia, the security guard, handed the phone over to Diddy, and they made a deal to purchase some very damning video. A deal that was $100,000. You don't think that's obstruction?
That is not racketeering, Ashley.
That is obstruction of justice.
This is crazy. This is not racketeering.
Joe Tacopina, look at the list. There's 37 crimes under racketeering. One of them is bribery, and one of them is obstruction of justice. And that little act covered two of them, and he used his bodyguard and his chief of staff to help him do it, according to testimony.
Bribery, that's not bribery. That's making a deal to buy something. That's not bribery. Bribery is when you bribe a public official. That's not bribery.
That is not required.
Here's $100,000.
But then he also made them sign an NDA. But he also made them sign an NDA as well.
That's not bribery, guys.
And they would have to pay him $1 million
all day long, every day.
That happens all the time. That's not peculiar to racketeers.
You don't think this is obstruction of justice and using your chief of staff and your key bodyguard to pull it off and hand over the big bag of $100,000?
Obstruction of a misdemeanor crime in
maybe,
state court.
You know what, Ashley, maybe it is obstruction of justice. He's not being charged with that.
But that's one of the predicate acts. Under what's required for RICO.
You know, I got to say, it's kind of interesting because the way lay people, non-lawyers, think of organized crime is based on movies about the mafia, movies about, you know, groups that have this underlying business. So lay people, I think, look to see, is there this underlying criminal business, selling drugs, sex slaves, hitmen, you know, where that's the business. This is all over the place.
How about Nexium? Keith Raniere sentenced to 150 years in prison by this exact Southern District of New York group of prosecutors. They put him away for exactly some of the things that are being alleged in Diddy's case.
You're not comparing Diddy to that guy, are you? Do you know that?
That was sex trafficking and racketeering.
That was sex trafficking.
You know who we can compare it to, though? You know who we could compare it to? R. Kelly, who also got locked up on RICO.
Minors.
He got convicted of RICO.
Those were minor. Why
don't you compare him to Keith Raniere? Why don't you? These were grown-ass women and grown-ass men who could have left that cult at any time and didn't because they were under a psychological, financial, and physical control of him. It's the same pattern that we're seeing, attested to in the Diddy
jealous
courtroom.
lunatic going crazy. Keith Raniere was someone who they looked at like as a Jim Jones figure.
Age, Joe, and
that's how they look at Diddy. They look at Diddy as a god. They said it. Many of them have testified he was a god.
They looked at him as a guy who could advance their careers. Come on.
Guys, is it a good idea for prosecutors to introduce sex tapes? Because there is a buzz now that they are either considering it or made a decision to do it. Would it make sense for the prosecutors to show these freak-offs? Because I don't know which way it cuts.
They've already shown a few.
Yeah, they've already shown
some. Doesn't make sense, Ashley is saying. I don't know, Harvey. It's a good question. I haven't seen them. Even though I did speak with Diddy and consult with him, I have not seen those tapes. I've been told, and I don't know, unless I see them, I can't opine, but I've been told they're just like sort of weird, but nothing so insanely graphic, right? That no one's getting hurt, no one's being bound or gagged or anything like that. They're just like this guy watching two other people have sex. It's strange, it's weird. Again, I don't know if that really advances the ball here. What advances the ball is car bombing people's cars, threatening people, if they don't do something, he's going to harm them. That's advancing the ball. Showing these tapes, telling about his baby oil, talking about his applesauce on hamburgers, I don't know if that advances the racketeering case here at all.
Ashley?
Well, I interviewed Shawn Daring last night on my show, and he goes by the sexy name of Skylar when he's doing his male prostitution. And he was with Diddy and Cassie, I think he said about a dozen of these freak off episodes. He said in the beginning, it seemed like Cassie was into them. Towards the end, things had palpably changed. He said she was going through the motions. It looked like she was controlled. And then when Diddy left the room and he tried to talk to her, she was terrified and told him, shh, not till he comes back. And so Skylar, this guy, Shawn Daring, changed his opinion of whether Cassie was under the control and doing things that she really didn't want to do.
Brianna Bongalin testified that Diddy dangled her over a 17th floor balcony, and that he said, you know what the fuck you did. And she was asked, what was he talking about? She said, I don't know. I'm not trying to be cute here, but to me, that left the jury hanging. It's what exactly are they trying to prove here? I mean, I understand that's a crime for sure, but what are they trying to prove if they can't say what it was about? I was really, Arman, I was confused by that.
I think it was clear that they were trying to prove that this guy, it's the Powell-on effect. It's the Powell-on. All these women, he's beat them, he's manipulated them. That's that whole controlling of their mind, the psychological warfare that he puts them through, which to me would lead into the RICO that they're trying to prove. So for me, I think this was just an add-on. But the only thing is that defense team is so good that they were able to almost insinuate that her and Cassie set up and strategically planned this whole balcony situation for her to ultimately get a $10 million payoff, hopefully in the future, with a civil suit. And so that's what kind of, to me, left everybody hanging, because Nicole Westmoreland went up there and made her look like, wait, so you and Cassie discussed this from who was going to be there, how it was going to be set up, whether it was going to be at the house or at your apartment, or was it like who was actually going to be in the room, what time of day it was going to be. Like the way that she was questioning and angling the question, and the girl was only able to say yes or no, made you almost feel like, well, did they sit and write this down?
I got a different opinion. I got a feel that they were trying to clarify Cassie's memory was, I think it happened at my apartment, or I think it happened at a hotel. And Bono was saying, no, it happened at your apartment. They were both pretty high. They'd been doing drugs all night with another friend. But I think they also dangled something that made more sense about that whole open, why would this have happened? This whole dangling me over a balcony, you know what the F you did. And they suggested, the defense attorney suggested that you hooked up with Cassie, meaning you may have had a lesbian relationship and maybe Diddy was jealous and angry about it. But they shut that down. It was a sustained objection. And so I think that the possibility here is that they're going to crucify Bono for saying these things. But at the same time, she's got receipts. She actually went to the doctor. She actually went to the chiropractor. The chiropractor actually demanded, who did this to you? And she said, I would not say. I was too afraid. So it wasn't as though this was just a total phantom event that they came up with. Something happened to her. She was thrown around, and she had bandages, and she had terrible bruising that she took, and they're contemporaneously stamped with a time.
Hey, Brian Andrews, our TMZ producer, was inside the courtroom. Brian, what was the jury's reaction?
Jurors were shown a text message with metadata in it. It was a picture of one of Bona's injuries, and it showed that she was in Los Angeles at the time. And then up came a receipt from the Trump Hotel in New York City under the name of Frank Black, ordering hundreds of dollars of room service on the same day, to which Diddy defense lawyer Nicole Westmoreland said, two people can't be in two different places in the country at the same time. And then she went on to finish her interchange with Bona by saying, you were hoping for a $10 million payday, and the compensation you're hoping for is going to make you rich, and your definition of this is money. and I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Arman, do you think the prosecutors made headway this week?
I feel like they did good with Bono. I think that they did good with showing the $100,000 payoff to me. I think that they did good showing the proof of the funds of $20,000 being deposited in his account and returned, things like that. I think that they did an amazing job with the audio and visual forensic analysts. When they showed the audio and video forensic, and they were proving that, hey, this file was corrupted, but it wasn't corrupted because of a said person corrupted the file. It was just because it was transferred over and downloaded. And in fact, this is actually what happened. I feel like the defense was trying to say, hey, it wasn't as bad as it seems. It just was sped up. And so when we saw it put together and he explained why frames were dropping and why timestamps weren't adding up, it was very clear that Diddy beat her and dragged her. And I think the most important part for the people that didn't really want to understand the forensics of it all, the strategy in every time we talk about it, just in case you think you might be getting headway, Diddy, we're going to play this video back and remind everybody that's emotionally charged that you yanked and grabbed and kicked this woman. So whether, everybody's not a lawyer, everybody doesn't care about legal jargon, everybody up there in the jury is not worried about that. They're going to make their decision based off their feelings too. So you see that girl get yoked up, kicked, stepped on, you're going to be like, that dude's a monster, put him away. And I think that they did a great job by keep presenting that to everyone today.
Joe, that's got to be the point here, which is that, yeah, you can look at the charges, but if the jury just hates him for what they see, they're going to convict him.
That's why they played this tape, I think, a dozen times now. It's not, honestly, this is a domestic assault, a grotesque domestic assault, but he's not charged with domestic assault here. They played that. Look, all you need to do is play the tape once if you want to make a point that it somehow aids the proof of the racketeering or the sex trafficking or whatever you think it ties into. But playing it so many times, first of all, I think it begins to neutralize it a little bit. First of all. Second of all, it's so clear that what they're doing, I mean, most of the evidence in this case surrounds the visual evidence, surrounds this tape. Now they have a guy to break down the tape. I mean, we saw the tape once, twice, 5 times. It's the same thing. Whatever angles you're looking at, he's a horrific guy.
Hey, Joe, some additional value of the tape?
I'm saying, I think this tape is them trying to do exactly what I said.
I think we know what you're saying, Joe. I just want to ask, can I ask you something? Can I ask you a question? Can I ask you a question?
Okay, please.
Is it possible? Thank you, Dave. Is it possible that the tape also goes to prove those on the jury that might be thinking like you and Bill Maher, she could have left? Are they showing the tape to show what happens when she tries to leave, when she grabs her shit and tries to discreetly sneak out of the hotel room? If she gets yoked up, as Arman said, kicked in the damn back, messed up, beat up, and horrified? Could it be going to show that?
Ebony, yes, it could be to show that. And that's what they will argue. That
I appreciate it.
I don't know if this was during a freak off or not. That's the one thing that's still a little. It was, okay. So that's Ebony, you're 100% right. That's what they're going to argue.
But wait, Joe, are you saying I know a little bit about the law too? Do I know a little bit about the law?
Listen, even a broken clock works twice a day, Ebony. Even a broken clock works twice a day.
As Arman says Arman brings up a really good point about the jury. They are not lawyers. They are not this panel. They're not Bill Maher. They're not exposed to this stuff day in and day out like we all are. But I will say this. I think I saw the other day the filing for the jury instructions, and they're about 135 pages. I've seen jury instructions in my day, and they are not usually that long. But you can bet your bottom dollar that the summations are going to be so specific, and that jury instruction is going to take them probably the first couple of days of deliberation.
Brian, what was the jury's reaction to what they heard this week?
Well, the real time to take the temperature is when the white noise fills the courtroom and they're having a sidebar, because that's when you see the jurors start to interact with each other. And Arman and I are sitting in different sides of the courtroom, but we're looking at them, and some of them are raising their eyebrows, others are reacting. The judges said, don't talk about the case, but are they talking about the Mets? Are they talking about, traffic in Midtown Manhattan? No. They're probably talking about what they have just seen while they're killing time on these sidebars. But even during Bona's testimony, and even before that, when they were playing the video from the Intercontinental, all of these jurors had their sights focused on the monitors, and they were watching like this. I don't know, Arman, maybe you saw it as well. They were keenly keyed in on what they were seeing, especially as Diddy was being violent toward Cassie.
What was Diddy's demeanor in court this week?
This week, to me, he seemed a little bit more chipper. Like, he seemed like, all right, I feel like I'm making headway, especially coming off of the heels of Mia, which, by the way, I think was probably one of the worst testimonies for the prosecution. But I think he seemed a little bit more confident. He seems, when he walks in the courtroom, he's smiling, he's speaking to the people now, he's doing hard hands at everybody. So, and then to me, there's also moments where I feel like he's seen this so many times, he knows what people are going to say. So he's a little numb to the testimonies. Now, when it gets too crazy, he does a little shake here and there, but for the most part, I think he kind of tunes it out a little bit.
But guys, also, wasn't he, I get the impression just reading up on every motion, and I say physical motion, not legal motion. Every one of his physical motions seems to be like a whiny little bitch, meaning when something isn't going right up on the stand, he starts to shake his head like crazy or push himself out from defense table. And then when somebody says something fawning, like, yeah, I looked up to him, I learned a lot from him, he nods his head excessively so as to show the people behind him that's right. And it almost sounds like that becomes cloying and obnoxious, and that the jurors will see through that.
Well, Diddy almost got kicked out of the courtroom towards the end of the week, and that's because the judge had spotted him nodding, winking, and smiling at members of the jury. The judge told Mark Agnifilo for his client to cut it out, or there would be serious repercussions, including possibly having Diddy removed. Meantime, we're all talking about Jane and her appearance on the witness stand. It was very clear that she fell in love very quickly with Diddy, that he swept her off of her feet, was paying for her life on both coasts of the United States, flying her all over down to the islands for exotic vacations, that she initially found the hotel nights or rendezvous with these escorts to be taboo, that was enjoyable. But that quickly deteriorated, and she was done with it. In fact, she not only told Diddy verbally, but she sent him letters and texts to that effect that she did not want to be having sex with other men.
A few months ago, I spoke with Mark Agnifilo, Diddy's lead lawyer, about the possibility of Diddy taking the stand. Here's what he said. It's really interesting.
I don't know that I could keep him off the stand. I think he is very eager to tell his story. And I think he will tell every part of his story, including what you see on the video. So I expect it's going to be explained by the both of us.
Joe, I think Mark Agnifilo is a great lawyer. I think that's crazy talk. I do not see any version of Diddy being cross-examined where it helps the defense.
0% chance he takes a stand. That cross-examination, we'll be here till Christmas with this trial, with the cross-examination, because he'd have to answer questions about all of his conduct, the car bombing stuff, the Kid Cudi thing, the dangling off a balcony, the drugs, the this, the that, the cut in the head, the cut in the back, the bruising. The whole video will take 2 days alone just to cross him on. There is no scenario, and I listen, I'm not there, okay? But if I were there, I'd lock his hands down, because you can't put him up. You just can't put him up. There's too many questions he'd have to answer. He's not going to come out looking well.
And Joe,
and this
also,
is a reasonable doubt. Hold on. This is a reasonable doubt case, right? You have a situation where, look, they're telling the story now on the stand. They've said things that are inconsistent in the past. Some of their conduct is not consistent with their on-trial testimony. You know, a reasonable doubt is not just he probably committed the crime. It's not, I think he committed the crime. It's not, I'm almost certain he committed the crime, Harvey. It's, I have no reason to doubt he committed the crime. That's a very high standard. And you have to deliver a reasonable doubt summation, like I did in the Rocky case, real strong here. But putting him up on the stand takes away from all the deficiencies in the prosecution's case, takes away from all the inconsistent statements you caught all the witnesses in. All of that goes by the wayside. It all comes down to, was Diddy lying about anything or not? Because if the jury finds out that the defendant lied, game,
that was
set,
very
and
sly
match.
of you to
Over.
say that. I have no reason to doubt. That is not what reasonable doubt is. It's a reasonable doubt, meaning you can jump a chasm. You just can't jump a very big chasm. But I'm going to say this about
in the charge. It's reasonable doubt. So if you have a doubt based on a reason,
you said I have
you must
no
acquit.
reason to doubt. That's different.
Right, that's called a
no
reasonable
reason
doubt. If you wrong, I've done this 120 times now in jury trials. If you have a doubt based on a reason, right? You can't have a doubt that's not based on a reason, obviously, Ashley. But if you have a doubt based on a reason, that's called a reasonable doubt.
A reasonable doubt, not no reason to doubt. It's different. But let me say this about Diddy taking the stand. The other reason he can't possibly take the stand, and I think, Joe, you've had clients like this. I've seen people like this. I think we've all come into contact with people like this. People who have a king complex, who can be triggered like that into anger. This man needs at least 2 to 3 decades of anger management. So just one female prosecutor who gets under his skin just a little too long, and you're going to see the real Diddy who slammed on Cassie's door before he slammed on her face and slammed on her arms and slammed on her legs and slammed on everybody. Allegedly.
Ashley, can I ask you guys this, though? If you don't take this stand...
One second, Arman.
Okay.
You're right about the king complex, about his personality being so strong. I will tell you this, and because I did spend time with him. The person today is a very different individual than the person back then. Back then, and I think this is going to be a big part of the defense case, he was so jerked up on every drug possible. He was always out of his mind. He's a little bit of a different human being today, I will tell you that. And it doesn't clear up or it doesn't forgive what he did. I'm not trying to say that. But I'm just saying, I think on the stand, you're not going to see that person who you see in the hallway video. I don't think you're going to see that. But still, I think it's an impossible situation for him to get up there. Because
go ahead, Arman, and then I have a point. Go ahead, Arman.
Okay, I just want to ask the question to you guys, because you guys are the experts at this. So for me, I'm wondering, could it be as simple as if I'm not guilty, I'm going to take the stand? If I'm fighting for my life, why not take the stand? Because not taking the stand, in the eyes, it could be like, all right, you are guilty. You're just hoping that the juries don't see that, right?
No, it doesn't work.
Joe, let me get in here for 1 second, Joe. 1 second. Here's the thing. I don't think that amongst us in this conversation, there's much debate about the lack of wisdom of Sean Combs getting on that stand. I think we more or less agree. But here's what we also know for sure, ladies and gentlemen. It ain't up to a single damn one of those defense lawyers. It is up to who? Sean Combs himself. And I think Ashley makes a fantastic point when she brings up the king complex. Not only is he a trigger hair away from exploding on the stand, I think to Arman's point, I could see him, even in a more sober mind, Joe, feeling I'm 55 years old and a billionaire because I'm a great storyteller. I've been able to tell my people as Black community members, I've been able to tell a global society that I am a connoisseur of all things wonderful, luxurious, and fabulous. And if I could sell and build a billion-dollar brand on narrative, let me take my ass on that stand and tell my story, tell the story of my life. And I think that could be the ideology of Sean Combs.
It brings me back to O.J. Simpson. That O.J. Simpson, hours after he flew back to Los Angeles, was advised, do not talk to the police. O.J. Simpson, who has gotten away or got away with a lot in his life before that, figured he could talk his way out. And he went to the police station and he sat down with the 2 lead detectives because he wanted to. And he believed he could do it. And I think Diddy is cut from the same cloth. I really do, guys.
You're going to have 7 lawyers, though, Harvey. 7 lawyers are going to be looking at him saying, you are going to kill yourself. You're crazy. It's a suicide mission. You're in good shape.
I hope he doesn't.
Right now, but the arrogance is going to get him on that stand.
Now, you're right,
guys.
But they can't handcuff him. They can't handcuff him.
You can, but he's not testifying. He doesn't want to put himself in jail for the rest of his life either.
Okay, we are closing in on the end of the prosecution's case. It will still go another week, but it is going to be really interesting to see how the defense takes what has been presented already to turn things around. They say they have 2 weeks. So this is judgment time. We will see. Guys, we will see you next week. Thank you.